One issue that is really confusing, perplexing, and mind-boggling for a lot of caregivers when they're caring for somebody with dementia is surprising and inappropriate sexual behavior. And this is something that we don't talk about a lot, but I think we should, because it's something that often causes embarrassment or disgust or anger. And so I'm going to tell you some stories. These are all true stories, and I hope this will help you understand that sometimes the disease affects our brains in very surprising ways. So imagine this. My dad had been in adult diapers for about 4.5 years, and I got a letter from my mother, and this is what she wrote. Dear Elaine, don't know if I have told you about Quentin's recent obsession with sex. Just out of the blue one morning, he turned to me at breakfast and he said, Madeline, it occurs to me that you don't want to have sex with me anymore. And I said, that's right, Quentin, that part of our life is over. And then he said, well, if you're not willing to have sex with me, would it be okay with you if I had sex with somebody else? And I said, you know what? Sure, why not? Just knock yourself out. I figured if he could find someone who was willing to have sex with him, she could have all of him. She could deal with his wet depends. She could pick him up off of the floor when he fell, and she could deal with his wet sheets in the middle of the night, and she could just have him all to herself. Good grief. So the next morning at breakfast, he turned to me and he said, Madeline, would you call Avis for me? He was not wanting me to rent a car. Avis is the name of the girl that he took to his high school senior prom 60 years ago. Well, of course I didn't want to call Avis, but that was all I could talk about all morning long. He just followed me from room to room saying, have you called Avis? When are we going to call Avis? Why haven't you called Avis? Are we going to call Avis now? Have you called Avis? When are you going to call Avis? Well, finally, I couldn't take it anymore. So I went to the phone, I picked it up, and I called Avis. I did not tell her why Quentin wanted to see her, but it turns out that she and her husband live in Wichita. It's about 50 miles from McPherson, and they were coming up to McPherson on Saturday for a funeral. So I said, well, why don't we just meet at the Red Coach Inn for lunch? So we agreed to. So when she came walking in, Avis had her oxygen bottle strapped to her walker. And I thought, all right, well, that'll take care of that. So we sat down, we had a nice lunch, and I told Avis's husband all of the things that I was doing to take care of Quentin. Like, I got one of those plastic pads like you see in offices to go under chairs, and so it just makes him able to scoot up to and away from the table was so much easier. And I had Greg come home and install a ceiling hoist above the bed so that I can help lift him up and out of bed. It really saves my back. And then Avis's husband told me a lot of the things that he was doing to make it easier for him to take care of her. And it was a nice lunch, and they're lovely people. And on our way home, I turned to Quentin and I said, so Quentin, what do you think of Avis now? And he said, I think she wants me.